In the American Football League, we had some young people who never saw color as an obstacle. We went into many of the predominant black schools to take a lot of the players. We called it an untapped reservoir.
Clem Daniels, a hard-running halfback from Prairie View A&M.
Different individuals in leadership roles throughout our history has made it so that we can be at the forefront of diversity, of inclusion.
We wanted to win. We weren't interested in who they were or exactly where they came from. Could they give the same loyalty, tradition that was necessary?
3, 2, 1, dominate!
Last Tuesday, Shell made history when the Raiders made him the first black head coach in the NFL's modern era.
I do what I have to do as a coach, and it just so happens that I am a black coach. But first and foremost, I'm the head coach of the Los Angeles Raiders.
Knocked down by Terry McDaniel, and Art Shell has won.
He is no longer the first black coach in the NFL. He's just a winning coach right now.
We talk about the need for DEI, and we never had to focus on that because it's always been part of the Raiders' DNA.
It's built into the fabric. It's the foundation. It'll never be torn apart.
I'm not hiring you because you're black. I'm hiring you because you're a Raider.
Welcome, Raider Nation. I'm Baron Davis, and this is a special moment. Black History Month Roundtable, talking about the past, the legacy, and all the great things about Black History Month. I'm so honored to be the host of this panel with such accomplished and esteemed people in this great organization. Starting first, far in, Mike Taylor, Editor-in-Chief, Historical Content of the Las Vegas Raiders. Sandra Douglass Morgan, Las Vegas Raiders Team President, and the Hall of Famer from the Oakland Raiders. 6-time Pro Bowler and Hall of Famer, Eric Allen. Thank you all for doing this, for being a part of this.
For sure.
Mike, I'm going to open this up with you. Since you are the history of the Raiders, can you just give us some stories about, when the Raiders started? Because I know diversity, I know inclusion, I know representation of the black voice has always been a staple in this Raider organization. Can you give us some context and some historical moments that have happened?
Well, yeah, you're right. Those three words have been part of the fabric of this organization since the 60s, since essentially the birth of the organization. And I can take you back to a couple of seminal moments that took place in the history of the organization, take you back to 1963. There was a preseason game that was being played in Mobile, Alabama. The black players, as was the case back then in 1963, in the 60s, the black players weren't treated well. They couldn't stay in the same hotel as their teammates. They were not able to fill cabs. They were not able to eat in the same restaurants as their teammates. And that didn't set well with these professional athletes. And I'll read you a quote from Clem Daniels, who was part of this. The situation down there is pretty tight right now, and we do not intend to play football in an area where a Negro can't eat or sleep in a place of his own choosing. So ultimately, these players went to their head coach and general manager, Al Davis, and this game was moved to Oakland.
Amazing.
Now, and 2 short years later, in 1965, a very similar occurrence took place, and this was an AFL All-Star game. And again, this didn't sit well with these players. And I'll read you another quote from Clem Daniels. I quote Clem, "I don't know what y'all are going to do, but I'm going home." So ultimately, it took the game out of New Orleans and moved it to Houston.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
Now, Sandra, tell me now, Black History Month is happening right now. Just finished the Super Bowl. Talk about what you're doing today to continue to push your initiative forward.
I love that you asked me what I'm doing, but I'm lucky to have a really strong team around, and we're all doing this collectively, and everyone's on the same page. And I just want, really have to give a shout out. We have our Chief Financial Officer, Michael Crome, is a member of BAST, and he's a Black African-American. Kiava Martinez, Chief Sales Officer, over all streams of revenue, whether it be our partnerships, our premium suites, and our ticketing, is Black. And also our Senior Vice President of Government and Community Relations, Piper Overstreet White. And then, we talk about us as well, our Vice President of Player Personnel, Brandon Hunt, who just joined us last season for football operations as well. So, it's truly a team effort. forward, and to be able to have leadership on both sides of the building that understand the importance of this, makes kind of my job a lot easier, and it's not falling on one person because we're all out there on the same beat, same rhythm, understanding, the importance of Black history at this organization. I think when I think about it today, I think the respect for individualism is really important. And you kind of heard that through the quotes of Clem Daniels and clearly Mr. Davis kind of hearing, a leader speak out like that and kind of being behind their players. And I see that too with Mark. He allows people to be themselves. And when I often say we talk about diversity, we talk about the need for kind of DEI, and, I never had to kind of focus on that because it's always been part of the Raiders' DNA.
Right.
When you look at our, our employee base here on business operations, we have 30% are women, and we have one of the most diverse business operations staff because we want to make sure that we're meeting that fan where they are. We understand their experience, and we want to be able to, whether market to them, make sure we're kind of growing our fan base. And so I've always just felt that it's really important to allow people to be themselves. And I think that's what the heart of inclusion is, right? Yeah. I see you and I'm accepting you for who you are. We can't forget about our history to know where we are now and where we're going to be. So when I think about just, the inclusion and involvement of alumni, it's all kind of tied together, right? We have to know about the history of the Raiders and these incredible things. You think about how bold that was in 1963. People don't even want to do that today.
Right.
So it just makes me proud to be here, proud to be a Raider.
Thank you so much. Eric, just piggybacking off of that as a player, right? Coming into an organization like this, how does it make you, how do you feel?
Yeah.
Right. Knowing, being under, this Raider banner, but also knowing the history that you're walking into.
I've been very fortunate because this was my team as a young guy, right? Cliff Branch and Fred Blitnikoff, Mike Haynes, all these great players. And I kind of understood like that was built into the foundation back there in those times. And as Mike alluded to, in the 60s, sometimes these teams would go to, and I wasn't playing in the 60s, right? But just doing my research, sometimes teams would come into a city, and if you couldn't stay at a hotel, you had to find a friendly home. So that was for the community sometimes to be their first initial contact with a professional football player because he's staying at Aunt Marie's house, who's right down the street, and he has to get up early and then meet the team at the facility. So the culture and the community was able to kind of get in close proximity to some of these players, either it be MLB or NFL, by just having them sleep over someone's house. Now, I had an understanding of that, and I knew that was in the foundation. So when I got here to the Raiders, and just a quick story is, so I drove up. The first person who picked me up at the airport was Willie Brown, right? And so I was almost like, this is Willie Brown picking me up at the airport. So I knew he had played. He had coached with the Raiders. So it just showed me like the commitment that this organization is willing to take with their players who, have a responsibility to the community. And so I just feel like, as a broadcaster and as an analyst, when I'm in front of television, I'm always thinking about what's that next young Black guy I'm influencing to take my spot, when I'm finished. So it's built into the fabric. It's the foundation. It'll never be torn apart. And that's the one thing I really appreciate about this organization.
I love that. And then just going back in the past, talking about, just all the various work that the Raiders have done, I would say in and outside the game, on and off the field, just take us back and bring us forward from your perspective, Mike, since you've been here, right, to see what is the evolution of culture, right, look like from a Raiders perspective.
Well, I'm going to piggyback on something that Eric said with regard to Willie Brown. Willie Brown, the great Willie Brown, who rest in peace. He as Eric said, he coached here, he played here, and he was a proud HBCU alumnus of Grambling State University. And so we got those guys, guys like, we got Willie in a trade, but Willie played for us, guys like Willie Brown. You mentioned Art Shell, you mentioned Hall of Famers, you mentioned George Atkinson, Clem Daniels, who I referenced before. And these were guys who didn't have the opportunity to play in the established NFL, but when the AFL came about, they got that opportunity. and they took it and they ran with it. And they were stars in the league.
Right.
And ultimately, some of these guys are in the Hall of Fame.
Amazing. And you're doing work with HBCU now, right?
Yes.
Talk about the game that we're doing.
It's been incredible to be able to host the first HBCU Classic at Allegiant Stadium this last October. Obviously, a passion for Mark. You just mentioned the players, that kind of laid that groundwork. Those Grambling versus Jackson State. We definitely hope to run it back. It was an incredibly wonderful experience because it's also out west too, right?
Yeah.
So we're able to kind of showcase the stadium, have these incredible young athletes see the stadium, and it also expose the Las Vegas community to HBCUs and to HBCU culture, which is really, really important. Now, I know I didn't attend an HBCU, but I do think it's incredibly important for our young people to understand that these are incredible options, not just for education, but for athletics as well.
Yeah, to follow up on that is, when we grew up, we didn't have access on the West Coast to HBCUs. And because of that, my sons kind of have an understanding of, hey, that's an option for us. And that's what all we're kind of looking for is that option, right?
How do each of you, let's start with you, Mike, connect with Black History Month, and what does it mean in the context of this sport, right, in this game that we're in?
Well, I connect by really looking back on my own personal history and my history here with the Raiders. I look back in 1989 when, fresh off of his Hall of Fame induction, Art Shell was named the first Black head coach in modern NFL history.
Last Tuesday, Shell made history when the Raiders made him the first black head coach in the NFL's modern era.
And so without much else to say other than I think he was a great player, he's a great assistant coach, and I'm sure he'd be a great coach and it'd be great for the Raider organization. Art Shell.
I don't celebrate those times during Black History Month. I celebrate those times every day, every time that I wake up. And I want to talk about Art Shell. He was named by Al Davis as head coach. This was something that Al Davis obviously felt was the best for the organization. In context, I want to read a quote from Art Shell that day. Al Davis didn't give a damn if I was black. He said, I'm not hiring you because you're black. I'm hiring you because you're a Raider. And I know you're capable. And I know what you're capable of doing. That's why I hired you. Not because you're black. I just happen to be black.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously Art had a great career with the Raiders, but a great playing career with a team doesn't mean that you're going to have a great career leading a team.
Right.
But obviously he showed that leadership that came through, and he was given that opportunity and took advantage of it. After first year or second year, we went to the playoffs and he was NFL Coach of the Year.
Amazing. Yeah, you have so much history.
I know.
It's so good.
Mike can do that.
Yeah, Mike
he's like that.
Sandra, the meaning of Black History Month for you, and in the context of what does it mean, in this sport, in this game?
We have to understand how far we've come and celebrate that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important to understand and hear about these stories and these incredible players and coaches and the foundation and the legacy of the Raiders. But we also have a long way to go. And the players and everyone that he just mentioned, it was only within the last 6 years. It was within our lifetime, right? Within my parents' lifetime. So we've come such a far way, and we should definitely celebrate those and remind each other of those historic achievements. But we have a long way to go, and I think it's really important to network, talk to each other, lift each other up, find out. For me, leading this organization, understand what people's passions are, how they want to grow professionally, how they want to grow personally, and be able to kind of pour into them and help them succeed in that way. And I really think you see the grit of the Raiders. You see the Super Bowl trophies, but that is what this organization has done for so many people, right? Think about so many people that have come through this organization, whether it be a player or a coach or even an employee or an executive, and what they've been able to do. It's such a beautiful foundation. And now that we're here in Las Vegas, I think being able to educate this community of what the Raiders are and what they stand for, I think about that when I think about Black History Month and being able to be here with all of you guys.
Thank you, Eric.
Well, I always think about there's enough room. There's enough room for a lot of us, right? It's just not, you get into the building, you get into the space, and then close the door behind you. So I think that's really important to understand and to, piggyback on what Mike is. It's just not this month. It's how you live your life. And for me, the first thing is being a good dad. I have 4 sons and a granddaughter, and it has to be 100% all the time. You have to be authentic and understand that it is about relationships. Very important. But the most important thing for me is just to make sure there's enough room for all of us to be successful. So don't hog the spotlight.
Amazing. And then I have one closing reflection, it's called. When future generations look back at this era of Raiders football, what do you hope they say about the team's commitment to Black history and Black excellence?
They see all of the impactful work that we're doing and how we're trying to kind of reach everyone where they are, whether it be through the HBCU Classic, whether it be supporting our HBCU tours. There's an organization in town that's been doing HBCU tours for Las Vegas kids and high school kids for 25 years, and the Raiders have been all in on that. Whether it's supporting our local NAACP chapter and supporting just people and minorities being able to grow in the game of football, both in business and in football operations. I truly hope that they see that and see, me and our leadership team and our employee resource group that is out there just doing the work in the community to help, people understand what it means to be a Raider.
Well, what I'm going to see continue is what we're doing right now. Sandra had mentioned, we take a look at a snapshot of our organization and we see our community, we see our world, which is rich and diverse. We have our boots on the ground, our staff that are in front of our community. They are a diverse group of individuals as well, who are oftentimes the first touch point of what people see when they see us, when they see the Raiders. They may see an ambassador. They may see a part of our community relations group. And all of our sectors in our organization, again, they're all built on excellence. And these people who are staffed here happen to be diverse.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I don't hope to continue. I know it will continue because that's who we are. That's the fabric of our organization and our continuing legacy.
And then last, Eric, I'm going to twist this up a little bit. What do you hope that they say about this team's commitment to Black history and Black excellence from a player's perspective? What do you want?
Well, obviously I'm a player at heart.
Yep.
And when you're talking about players, it's about what you're promoting in the locker room, right? And we hope that excellence that comes from just not Black folks, but the Raiders, right, are able to propel us to the Super Bowl.
That's right.
And through that championship, when you raise that trophy, that tells you that everyone in the building, Black, white, whatever, we're all able to come together and win the most, prestigious award in sports. And that's really from a player standpoint. And that the Black excellence is tied into all of that, from the combine, which we're about to come up on in the 2 weeks, the draft. We know how many players on that draft is going to be, Black guys who are able to help this football team hopefully reach that ultimate goal.
Amazing. What an amazing panel. Thank you for your time, for your insight. Raider Nation, as you see, Black History Month is not just the month of February. It's the history, it's the connection, it's the opportunity to share. We all come in different shades, we all come from different backgrounds, but what connects us most is our stories. And so honoring the past, right? Protecting the future, right? And making sure we bring in people along so when the torch is passed, the torch is received. Thank you all and have an incredible Black History Month.